Professor Pallas here with the weekly wrap-up on our recent assignment on popular diets. Overall, this class did an outstanding job finding and evaluating popular diets that are being advertised to consumers today. On this slide, I list all of the diets that this class reviewed. There were two of them that I have to say I had never seen before: the hard-boiled egg diet and Oxysize, a Japanese breathing diet. Great work to the students who found those two diets. In general, everyone did a really good job explaining what the diet was, calculating what the intake was that the diet recommended, and comparing that to what would be a healthy diet based on the Mifflin-St. Jeor calculations. When you calculate Mifflin-St. Jeor for someone who is trying to lose weight, you will typically subtract around 500 calories for that person for their daily intake. Sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less. It all depends on how tall the person is, how much they weigh, and their age. So the diets that were reviewed included the Mediterranean diet, the Skinny Fit Tea diet, the Plant Paradox diet, the Fit Tea diet, the Baby Food diet, the Ketogenic diet, the Atkins diet, the Flat Tummy Tea diet, the Khloe Kardashian diet, the Blood Type diet, the HCG diet, the version with hormone injections, the Oxysize Japanese breathing program, the apple cider vinegar diet as paired with keto fast, the Jenny Craig diet, the cabbage soup diet was reviewed 3 times, twice by itself and once with a supplement called Xenocal, the raw food diet, the DASH diet, intermittent fasting dieting, the Whole30 diet, the Tea Me Detox tea, and the hard-boiled egg diet. When you look at this list of diets, this is not even an inclusive list of all the diets that are out there today. It gives you a better understanding for why, when you're studying nutrition and dietetics, we don't teach diets. We teach you what a healthy eating pattern looks like, and we teach you the evidence-based, with a scientific foundation way to calculate healthy intake needs of calories, of macronutrients, and of micronutrients for a person for optimal health. We then show you what we need, how we make adjustments, if that person would need to gain weight or need to lose weight. It's good to know about all the diets that are out there, but it would be a really big job to try to keep up with all of them because this industry continues to plow along at a very quick pace. It's better to know how to take a look at a diet and how to dismantle it. And that is what we did in this assignment. We looked at the diet, we understood what its parameters were, we wrote down and understood what the intakes they were recommending for people were based on calories and macronutrients. And then we compared that to what would be a healthy diet using Mifflin-St. Jeor as our calculation. In general, the diets that you as a class reviewed all recommended calorie intake levels that were below what Mifflin-St. Jeor would recommend as a healthy weight loss range for our sample person. Many of the diets that this class reviewed were recommending that people intake a total of less than 1,200 calories per day. Many of the macronutrient intake levels that were recommended in the diets that this class reviewed were below the recommended dietary allowances. The one diet that stood out as not being below the RDA was the keto diet, and this was unique, but it was actually exceeding the RDA for fats. Most of the diets that this class reviewed for this assignment would promote a fasting state. And it's important to remember that when someone is in a fasting state, they're not protecting the BMR. In fact, they're at risk for decreasing the BMR. The one common thread that every single diet reviewed shared was masterful marketing. These diets are being presented in a way that makes them appear to be highly credible and believable. Many of the diets are using celebrities and also internet influencers to promote and position their products. There's also the use of pseudoscience or simply a lack of science completely. These diets also promote and promise rapid weight loss. They also tend to make many generalizations, such as you will lose weight quickly. Um, it's interesting that the marketing is the one thing that they all share in common. It's not to say that when you see a well-marketed product, it's a bad product, but it's something to be aware of. One of the products that was previously marketed in years past, but that nobody in this class wrote about for this assignment this semester, is the raspberry ketone diet. This would certainly be another example of a fad diet, and I'm not recommending it. I just wanted to point out that this is another diet that was out there several years ago that had a lot of popularity for a certain period of time, and that was the raspberry ketone supplement diet. We'll just put that back there on the shelf for today's lecture. When we are dismantling a diet to see if it's a good, logical diet for a client to follow, we always want to remember all of the elements that are on that energy out side of the energy equation. The energy inside is calories. The energy outside is everything else. And one of the things we learned is that physical activity falls on the energy out side of the energy balance equation, and it is the element that we have the most control over. Of all the diets that this class reviewed this semester for this project, very few of them recommended physical activity. Those that did recommend physical activity tended to be very general and often did not even give a number of days per week or minutes per day that a person should be active or exercising, and they certainly didn't address the intensity of the exercise. However, there was one diet that strongly encouraged regular daily physical activity, and that was the Khloe Kardashian diet. So, kudos to the Khloe Kardashian diet for recognizing that programming regular daily physical activity into a program will increase the level or the likelihood of successful weight loss. Several of you reviewed diets that were promoting teas to promote weight loss. These teas were either actually ingested through drinking them as a tea, or they could even be used as a body wrap. What's interesting about the teas that were reviewed is that they were all lacking FDA approval. There were other supplements that some of you also reviewed in the diets that you presented this semester, and again, those supplements were lacking in FDA approval. We're going to learn more about this next week in class, and it's something that you want to focus on and look at anytime a client is bringing you a supplement that they would like to consider taking for weight management. The supplement industry is very loosely regulated. There's not always a guarantee, even when something has FDA approval, that the product is consistently manufactured over time or even from batch to batch. So being aware of and looking for FDA approval is a step that you would include when you are dismantling a diet for a client, trying to find something that is going to be a safe and healthy way for them to manage their weight. I sincerely hope that each of you enjoyed and found it interesting to research these diets and to dismantle them. When I think about what we've learned, it is my hope that you walk away from this project and after this short lecture with the understanding that many popular diets sound convincing. That doesn't mean that they're good, healthful diets for anyone to be following. The recommendations for healthy weight loss would always include an adequate intake of calories and nutrients. It is very rarely recommended that someone go on a very low calorie diet, such as less than 1,200 calories per day. Should that ever be recommended as a health professional or a registered dietitian, you will be including medical supervision for that person to make sure that they're getting what they need on a regular basis. It's interesting to note that one of the diets a student reviewed for this project, the HCG diet, was recommending a total intake of 500 calories per day. Think about that. That's almost one meal per day. For healthy weight loss, you want to make sure that the diet that you're putting together for a client accommodates their food preferences. When you can put together an eating pattern or program for someone that includes foods that they like, you're going to increase the risk that they can stick to that program over time and sustain it, and hopefully take it from being a new eating pattern or a diet to being their new modified, revised lifestyle. You also want to make sure that people are eating several times throughout the day. This could be 3 meals, this could be 7 small meals. The Khloe Kardashian diet actually was recommending 7 small meals throughout the day, and they had them timed, which was really insightful to see. Somebody had some thought put into that diet. If you have somebody who has issues or is developing issues with blood glucose control, it is very important that they are eating throughout the day without too long between meals or snacks. A healthy weight loss program should always be based on scientific research, never pseudoscience, and certainly not a lack of science. And finally, the only other element that should be included in a healthy weight management program is some form of physical activity or exercise. It's one of those small items on the energy outside of the equation, but it's the one that you have the most control over. Thank you so much for all of your effort on this project. I really enjoyed reading your papers. They were very well written. You did a great job. If anyone has questions, please reach out and let me know. And thank you for your time.